Pro wrestling is an ever-evolving industry, with encyclopedias being updated, documentaries being released, and relationships mended or destroyed. The attitudes and narratives of wrestling superstars begin to change. Individuals like the Ultimate Warrior, Bruno Sammartino, and others are brought back into prominence, while the history of some of the other bright characters are being washed away or changed. Some are pigeonholed and being remembered for that one event or that one specific moment in time. Others become as insignificant as a crossword answer. My job as PWP's resident historian is to remind you of the impact that these individuals and teams left on the industry. This is PW Profiles. If I asked you who the first WWF Triple Crown champion was, what would you say?
Well, I know the answer, because I know what we're talking about, but, Hulk Hogan? Bruno?
No.
Brooklyn Brawler?
Nope.
Undertaker?
Pedro Morales.
That was my next guess, honestly.
Now, the funnier part about this is you figure the number 2 and number 3 Triple Crown champions were Diesel and Bret Hart. So that happened early 90s, probably 93, 94. Uh-huh. Pedro Morales became Triple Crown champion in 1980. He also, as we'll talk about a little bit later, won the WWF's version of the United States title. So technically, Pedro Morales is the first Grand Slam champion, too. But you rarely hear about him. You hear about the Brunos, you hear about the Bob Backlunds, you hear about the Gorgeous Georges, you even hear about the superstar Billy Grahams, who, we just talked about. Pedro Morales is kind of left to the side, which besides his accolades, he was also a Latin American wrestler. So you'd think, especially with all the, especially recently with the LWO and then bringing up the former Hispanic wrestlers, you still don't hear anything about Pedro. Fun fact about him before his wrestling career, he was actually drafted by the Lones de Ponce, which was Puerto Rico's baseball team.
Oh, shit.
But because he lived outside of Puerto Rico, he turned it down. He debuted in 1959, wrestling mainly in Hawaii and California in both singles and tag action. It was actually in 1971 that he beat Classy Freddie Blassie for the vacant WWF United States Championship. And it was about a month later that he defeated Ivan Koloff for the WWF Championship, thus having to vacate the United States title. They feuded with Blassie, Stan Stasiak, Ernie Ladd, and Blue Demon Jr. In 1972, they had one of the more popular main events at the Showdown at the Shea, where he faced Bruno Sammartino in the first ever face versus face main event. And after 75 minutes, a draw finally took place, and they embraced in the middle of the ring, which pissed off a lot of fans. There's talk that they threw stuff at the wrestlers, that they flipped them off, they tried to storm the ring. But it even shows the wrestling fans weren't smart then.
We're smart then, we're smart now.
He eventually did drop the title to Stan Stasiak. And he had a reign of 1,027 days.
Wow.
The 5th longest overall reign. I know that Roman just passed 1,000, I think.
It's coming up.
It's coming up. And they talk about how he's going to pass Hogan soon. But there's not a mention of Pedro. You don't understand why. I mean, especially now that Triple H is running things and he supposedly cares so much about the history. Why are you just ignoring this little tidbit? I mean, for someone to have a reign that long, I mean, he's essentially the successor to Bruno. Even though, in a Hogan Warrior sense, you know, Bruno ended up winning the title again. And just like Hogan did, and Pedro didn't. It was just crazy. He ended up going to California after this, as one does once they lose the heavyweight title to kind of reset. He actually won tag team titles with Pat Patterson. It was around this time, if not a little bit before, that he helped train future NWA champion Dory Funk Jr.